let's talk a little about the transformers or the transformation of our responses. It is a very good practice for the implementation of a RESTful API. Let's imagine an example to see why it is required and why it is useful. Let's imagine that in some way you need to change the name of the attribute of your RESTful API. For example, we have currently a model called product, and the product has name as one of its attributes. But in fact, name is not a very good name for the attribute. This should be title. So you just need to go change your model to say it is not a name, it is now a title, and of course change the migration or basically the name of the column in your database. So after that, the name of the attribute is not name, it is title. And after that, it is very good. But if you realize that every time that you return an instance of a product, it is going to return title instead of name. Why? Well, because you just changed your structure of the model. And that means that every one of your clients, imagine that you have, for example, 5,000 clients, needs to change its code in order to reflect that changes. And that is not a good news for your clients or the developers of that clients, of course, because that means that we will need to change the code basically because you decide to change the name of an attribute. So that is not a very good idea. In fact, it is going to be annoying probably for some of your clients. So the transformations are going to allow us to avoid this problematic. With the transformation, we can say, yes, I have an attribute called title, for example, or name, or whatever name that you want to prefer. And that title or any other that you decide is going to be equals to the attribute with that specific name. In this case, for the product, we are going to say, for example, that the title is equals to the value of the attribute name. So in the response, we are going to return title instead of name. So how can we do that? Well, basically, we are going to use a PHP library called Fractal. Fractal has a concept called transformers. Let's see a little about this. You can see here the web page of Fractal, and in fact, they have an example here in the transformers. So you can see, for example, that we can say that we are going to receive an instead of a book, for example, that can be a product, a user, a category, transaction, etc. And we are going to say, yeah, we have an ID, and the ID is going to be equals to the ID of that book, and it is going to be an integer value. So, for example, it is going to specify the type of that specific value. It is very important to use it, especially for Boolean attributes, because they are not going to be surrounded between quotations. It is going to be a really Boolean instead of a string. Now, let's see especially the year. You can see that it is saying that, yeah, I have a year, but the year is going to be equal to the attribute YR. So you can see that there is an independency between the name of the real results that we are going to return, that are all of this, and the name of the real attribute from the database. So here appear a new utility of the transformers, that we are creating an independency between our responses and our database. That means that we are not going to reveal the real structure of our database if we change the names of the responses in our transformers. In that way, any possible attacker or user or client or whatever that you know is not going to know the real structure and name of the columns of our tables in the database. That is going to be a very good idea if we want to think about the security. But of course, it is a very good idea as well for the maintainability in the future occasions of our RESTful API, because we are going to be able to say, okay, it is going to still be in title, but now the name of the attribute is not title, is name, or whatever other thing that we are going to change in the future. Now, Fractal is a very good library for PHP, but it's not exactly easy to use. But fortunately for us, there exists a package created specifically for Laravel, and it is called Laravel Fractal. Laravel Fractal is created directly for Spatty. That is a very good organization that creates very important and useful packages for Laravel, and basically is going to provide us an additional layer over Fractal that will allow us to use some helpers and other classes to basically create and transform responses or collections in few lines. So we're going to see this with details along the classes of this section, and we're going to see that is going to be a very easy process. So see you in the next classes.